are we good to go?
We're good to go.
Fantastic. Okay, so last time we spoke about 3 issues. The one obviously is publicly sensitive in terms of it's a legal issue continuing, but it's basically about how, for 2 years I was working on a project that was my project, and that got taken away from me, and I basically got fucked over. And so there was this whole issue with trust, and not only trust in people, but trust in myself, doubting my own abilities, to my own instinct, trusting my own judgment. And then we spoke about eating disorders, how, eating disorders fit into your life, how it never leaves you, the reasons for, how I got to the point of having this eating disorder. But I think the major issue we spoke about is, ta-da, surprise, surprise, the relationship with my mother, in terms of, where we stand, the tumultuous relationship that we have. And we ended with how it reflects, the relationship that I have with myself, the relationship that I have with my mother and these people around me, how that affected the relationship that I have with myself, how I have twisted or warped or skewed view of what it is to be selfish. And the major thing that I needed to contemplate after the call that we had was, should I call my mother and let her know why I sort of cut ties with her as a form of closure? And the whole thing for me was, I don't want to do it because the moment I reach out to her, she's going to see it as a gap for I'm trying to open communication, when that is the last thing that I want to do. That kind of thing of, you step in shit, you stink of it. I'd rather just move on. But at the same time, there's in the back of my mind that niggly thing of, if I had to get that phone call where I'm told that my mother died, would I have any regrets in terms of not finding closure, of making peace with her in any way, shape, or form? And it was something that I had to think about, because on the one hand, I suppose I need closure to properly move on, and to get rid of that question in the back of my mind, that question of regret. Or do I not do it to save her from getting hurt, because I know that my closure would cause hurt for her, and that is not who I am. I don't like hurting people. There's nothing to be achieved or gained by hurting her that way. So I had to weigh up the relationship that I have with myself, in terms of, am I worthy of finding closure, but at the expense of someone else? And that is still, I haven't come to an answer. Well, maybe I have. I kind of feel that I should just not let it go, because, as I said to you last time, for me, letting go is one of the worst things you can do, because you are enabling behavior to continue when you just sort of let it go, move on, forget about it. So in terms of that, I've contradicted myself, saying that one of the things that irritate me when I face issues is people saying, oh, let it go, forget about it, ignore them, move on, which is the wrong thing to do, especially when injustice has happened. Because when you let it go, you just having that cycle continue, because it's the next person who's going to suffer that same kind of fate. If they do it to you and you just let go, they're going to do it to someone else. So by letting it go, by moving on, by ignoring them, you're enabling that kind of behavior. So it's not that I want to let go when it comes to my mother, but at the same time, I can't get over that hurdle of, if I do this, that she's going to think I'm trying to open up communications with her, when it's not about that. It's about closure. And number 2, I know that the conversation that we will have, regardless of how nicely I try and put it, obviously I'm not going to call her up and say, hey, listen, bitch, you hurt me, kind of thing. I'm going to, there's no product. It's counterproductive to go in with that attitude, but just to say, hey, listen, I think that you deserve to know why I cut ties with you. So obviously I'll do it in a very nice way, but I do know, regardless of how amicable the conversation is, that there will be hurt on her side. And I just can't move past that. I will never forgive myself knowing that I caused her to get hurt, regardless of how I feel about her.
Yeah.
My closure at her expense, because that wouldn't be closure for me at all. It would just bring up more questions. Did I do the right thing? Why did I do it? Now I need to apologize, etc., etc. So I'm kind of stuck in that loop, and I don't really know which way to go.
But I mean, do you think it would be hurting her, or it would
Yes.
actually be enlightening her?
No, it would hurt her. I know her enough to know that it would hurt her. And it would now bring, I don't know where she's standing about this whole situation at the moment. I mean, in the beginning, after I cut ties with her, she used to, like on my birthday or so, or every now and again, she'd message my husband and say to him, how's she doing, etc., etc. And I don't really mind that. It's just, it's none of her fucking business how I'm doing. If she had any interest, she can ask me herself. Why go through a third party? That's the thing. And also, it's not fair of me to bring my husband into the whole thing, because the relationship he had with her was it was a good relationship. She called him her second son. So I don't mind if the two of them continue their relationship, because it's completely separate from the relationship that I have. But
Right.
I found it really, really annoying that she'd go to him and say, hey, listen, how is she doing? Da, 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 da. When it's like, ask me directly. Don't involve my husband. This has got nothing to do with him. And I think after a while she stopped communicating with him, because he hasn't mentioned anything that she tried to reach out to him over the years, and I know that he would have told me. So I have no idea where her head is at, whether she's moved on, whether if I had to call up to make, to let her know why I did what I did, whether it would, bring up old memories for her, which could be painful. I don't know, and that's seriously, I'm stuck in that at the moment, because I cannot get rid of it in my mind that I don't want any regrets. I don't want any regrets, but do I do that at her expense? And I want to say no, it's not worth it, because I really don't want to hurt her. But on the other hand, again, if she's gone, she's gone, and then I sit with that regret for the remainder of my life, and I don't know how I will cope with that.
I don't see how it's hurting her, because I mean, it might not feel great, but conversations of this nature aren't great. The topic of the conversation is not great, and letting her know why what's happening is happening, I think would actually be better than constantly wondering why you decided to cut her off or whatever the case is. And I mean, you're saying that you don't want to, like, you get annoyed with the fact that she's going through a third party, but that's probably, again, because she doesn't really quite understand what's fully going on, even though she probably might have an idea, but she doesn't probably understand to like a full extent what's going through your mind and why you've now decided to cut her off.
This is it. There's all these unknowns. We can sit here and discuss, what if, da da da. There's all these unknown factors that I have to deal with. But the third party communication, did she do it out of curiosity? Did she do it out of guilt? Or did she do it out of sincere interest? Because on the one hand, I feel that if she did it out of sincere interest, she would have continued to try and reach out. And I know that my husband would have 100%, without any doubt in my mind, he would have told me if my mother had tried to communicate with him over these years again. So I kind of feel that if she was serious, if it was a real interest in how I'm doing, and not just a curiosity about, what's Nikki doing with her life and where is she now, etc., etc., she would have continued. If it was sincere, if there was a sincerity behind it, she would have done so up until now. When she hasn't, it was only in the beginning. But then that's just conjecture. It could be that she was sincere in wanting to know how I am, but just kind of gave up because she didn't want to put him in the middle of it. And again, I don't know whether she has moved on. You know, it could be that she's also got in her mind, like, why did my daughter choose to cut me out of her life? This constant wonder. But it could also be like whatever, like she did in the past. You know, at the moment I was born, she gave me over to my grandmother to raise. How many times didn't she sacrifice me for the men in her life? You know, the other kids had everything and they had every opportunity and they had a stable life and a stable home. And I was always sort of, you know, the outcast and as I mentioned before, the throwaway child. So she's done that time and time and time again, where she comes back and she reckons, okay, now I want to be a mother. And then she tries to be her best to be a mother. Granted, I'll give her credit for that. But then she reverts back to old patterns. I don't know whether she has reached that age in her life, because when all of this happened, she was very, very young. I mean, she was, what, 15 when I was born? So, you know, as you grow up and you grow older, you grow wiser, and you have more life experience and a deeper understanding of how the world works and how people work. So I honestly don't know whether she has moved on or whether she has any questions in her mind. And again, if I had to make that phone call and say to her, listen, I just need to talk to you about this so that you can have closure and I can have closure. A, would she actually give a crap? Or B, would she be hurt? I'm 99.9% sure, knowing her the way that I do, that she would be hurt, because it would be about her. It's like, you know, I'm a horrible person. I caused this hurt. I made mistakes in my life. Instead of, you know, it's going to be more of a pity party than taking responsibility for what she's done. If that
Right. Yeah, I hear you. But I mean, at the same time, like I had said last time, I feel like this is just something that you need to wrap your head around, about the fact that this is something that you need, and, you know, for you to move forward and, you know, not feel the way that you do about that situation or situations of a similar nature. Because, you know, I did say last time that I feel like this is affecting different spheres of your life, and, you know, the things that we had spoken about also seem to have this similar, you know, air with them that speaks to that not really being resolved. So I feel like, you know, I asked you why you feel like you don't deserve to have that closure, and instead are worrying more about the person who hurt you being hurt. Because, like I said, that conversation is going to hurt one way or another. Because, as you said, it is about her and it is about how she hurt you, but it's also more about you and you moving on and not having to feel the way that you do about this situation and similar situations. Because it's just going to keep going in circles if it's something that's just buried and, you know, not really resolved. It's something that's just going to continue to be there in the back of your mind and your subconscious. So again, I like I said, I don't feel like it is selfish for you to have that conversation and for her to be heard about it. It shouldn't feel good that she did that. You know what I mean? So there's other way for her to feel other than hurt by what she did, and coming to that realization and acknowledging it. And even if she doesn't give a crap, it's not about her. It's more about you and you getting your closure and you saying what you need to say.
Yeah, but you know, I know that if I had to talk to her, just to, you know, the only reason why I would want to talk to her is because I have that thing of regret in my head. Like, if she's gone, well, I have regrets. That's the only thing why I would think of picking up the phone and saying to her, listen, X, Y, and Z. If it wasn't for that, I really, really wouldn't give a crap. And I know that if I had to have that conversation with her, I have moved beyond the point of hurt. It wouldn't hurt me at all. It would just basically be satisfying my curiosity about whether I'm going to have regrets or not. And she's going to be the one who's hurt, because, you know, in the past, she has expressed that, you know, she's sorry about how she treated me, and she's sorry about this and she's sorry about that. But then, you know, again, she reverts back to old patterns. And I know she's a very, very sensitive person at the same time, and she's going to be hurt because she's going to feel it's about her. and it's going to be an attack on her. And no matter how much I explain to her, listen, this is not about hurting you, this is not an attack on you, this is just purely closure, it's not going to change the fact that she's going to internalize it, make it about her, and she's going to get hurt. I'm not going to be hurt by that conversation at all. I'm just going to give myself a peace of mind that, you know what, I'm not going to have any regrets because I tried, I did what I was supposed to do in terms of letting her know and, getting that whole question of regret out of my mind, which to me, if I'm not going to get hurt, if this is only about satisfying my curiosity and making sure that, I'm not going to have regrets one day versus her hurt, it just seems to be terribly, terribly, terribly selfish. And I have an issue with that. I have a big, big issue with selfishness. It's something that I cannot tolerate. And I feel that if I do the selfish thing, that it would violate who I am, because I'm guided by, I am my ethics, my morals, and my principles. And if my principle is, selflessness and kindness and compassion, am I going to be true to myself just by simply doing this, satisfying my curiosity while hurting her? I don't know if that makes sense.
I mean, I don't understand how it's, you say that it's purely for the fact that, you don't want to have regrets about having had that conversation. But I mean, if it's nothing more than that, why would you even have regrets in the first place?
Well, because I don't, as I said, if I get that phone, that's a good question though. If I get that phone call one day and somebody says to me, listen, your mother has passed on, what would my regret be? I suppose that's the question. I think the regret would be, I don't know, actually. That is a very good question. What would my regret be? Not telling her? And if that is the case, why would I regret not telling her? That means that there's some kind of sentimentality attached then. Not true?
There's something there that still needs to be resolved. And that's why I say that I feel like this conversation is more about you being acknowledged and validated, about the things which she did and her actually owning up to them, versus it just being, a little, I don't want to have any regrets about things I never said. I don't think it's as light as you make it. And I think you look at the selfish thing in a very weird way. Like I said last time, I feel like you look at that whole selflessness thing in a very, very weird way, because, and I think it actually comes from her behavior towards you. And that's why I'm having a hard time confronting her about this behavior and feeling like, okay, I don't really want to fall into the, the same patterns that, she's had throughout my life all this time, and not really caring about hurting me. And so you have this big thing of not wanting to be selfish and hurt other people, but in the process, you're really hurting yourself.
But am I though? Am I? I mean, if I don't understand the motivation behind satisfying my curiosity, this whole regret thing, am I really hurting myself if I feel that if I had to call her, I'm not going to get hurt? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I would say that you are hurting yourself, because as we discovered in our last conversation, this seems to have an impact in what triggers you and what sort of, drives your behavior in certain situations and how you feel about certain things in certain situations. So I would say that speaks to that not being dealt with. So I would say that you are hurting yourself by not even considering yourself as someone who needs taken care of as much as other people and animals and all the other things that you seem to think need taken care of.
I think the big question here is what do I want from that conversation? What is it that I'm trying to achieve from it? Okay, we talk about closure and everything else, but I mean, at the end of the day, what's going to happen if she tells me she's sorry? Then what? Or if she tells me, okay, I mean, then what? What? This is, I don't know. I'm so confused. Because I don't want her validation. I don't need her validation. Her validation means absolutely fuck all to me, because I don't really have any sentimentality towards her. She's just the woman who birthed me and nothing more. You know, it's a biological fluke. There's nothing more to the relationship. But I don't know.
mean,
I don't need her validation. So what is it that I'm trying to achieve? What's going to happen if do I want her to apologize? And if so, if she does, then what's going to happen? It's just like goodbye and move on. I mean, what? Fuck, this is difficult. This is really difficult. I'm really confused.
You say that you don't need her validation. It's not something that matters to you, and maybe you've told yourself that enough times that you actually believe it. But in the things that you say and the things that sort of trigger you about people saying, oh, just let it go, this, that, and the other thing, that kind of tells me that, you know, you feel like your feelings and your thoughts, things are invalidated, because it's like, oh, you feel like you can do whatever the fuck you want, when here I am thinking this, feeling this. I'm not just going to let it go. I'm going to seek out justice. And I feel like you're replaying that scenario over and over in other things in your life, instead of dealing with it where it actually matters and where that actually comes from.
I don't know. I honestly don't know, because I mean, it's not like we ever, as a child growing up, it's not like we ever had a relationship. I mean, I can look. I'll be honest with you. I can understand why she did what she did. I mean, she was 15 years old. She gave birth to a child, and this was back in the 70s. So, you know, obviously that was, number one, is a big scandal and a stain on the family name. But at the same time, handing me over to my grandmother to raise, she gave me one of the best chances in life possible. Because, I mean, my grandparents, as I mentioned to you, they were absolutely everything to me. They worshipped the ground I walked on. I worshipped the ground they walked on. It was just, with my grandparents, I really had an idyllic childhood up until a point when they moved away and I was put in boarding school. So she, you know, I don't blame her for that at all. If she had the means to look after me and gave me away, yeah, sure, then there's blame. You know, then I think I deserve answers to know, why is it when she could take care of me, she couldn't bother. So I'd really understand why she did what she did. But, and then, you know, every time she tried to be a mother, it's like, okay, now I think I'm stable enough. Let me try be a mother, and then I'd go stay with her for a little while. And then she just chooses the men in her life. Like, the men would just walk all over me, and I was, you know, pretty much abused by these men. And she just turned a blind eye for the sake of the men, because they were her meal ticket. You know, right. they were the guy that she eventually married is high up in the judicial circle. So there was stable home, stable income. She never lacked for anything. So I can understand then, and he hated me. So I can understand that it was weighing up her own interests versus mine. And I can understand that, you know, she didn't really have a choice, because she wasn't qualified in anything, and she needed a roof over her head, etc., etc. But at the same time, I also think that if you are going to try and be a mother, don't bringing in a child into an abusive situation and then just turn a blind eye for the sake of a roof over your head, especially not when you're an adult and you can think for yourself and you're a little bit more savvy than a 15-year-old kid. So I walked around with a lot of blame for a large portion of my life, you know, until I was an adult. And I don't know how it happened, but we reached out to each other again. And for about 10 years, we were like best friends. I loved her dearly, dearly. And I hope and believe that she loved me as well. Obviously not as much as I did, because at the end of the day, she did it again. She just sacrificed me for the other kids, put their interest above mine, which I find hard to reconcile with, and that's why I turned around and walked away and said, you know what, I'm tired of this pattern. And I'm not going to be in her life because the moment I am in her life, I enable that kind of behavior. Because, I mean, we've had long conversations about, you know, her husbands and me, and, you know, me being this basically the stepchild in the family and the throwaway child. And she has in the past said, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. But at the end of the day, saying sorry is one thing, acting sorry is another thing, and it's obvious that she isn't, because she yet again put her own interests above that of her fuck ups. You know, the fuck up being me. I was the big mistake in her life, and yet again, you know, by putting her own interest and the kids' interest, the other kids' interest above mine, just shows me that all those apologies were just, you know, lip service. It was whitewash. And sitting in her life just empowers that kind of behavior, and it's unnecessary. It's absolutely fucking unnecessary. And, you know, when you're in an unhealthy situation, least thing you can do is remove yourself from it. And that's what I chose to do. And I don't. So again, you know, do I really want, having been through this cycle how many fucking times, do I really want another fake apology from her or whitewash from her? What is it that I'm going to achieve from the conversation other than satisfying my own curiosity? And again, you know, I can't come back. I can't move past the fact that she's going to be hurt, and it's just unnecessary. It's absolutely fucking unnecessary to hurt her when, you know, we both seem to be okay with the status quo, other than me in my mind going, am I going to have this regret? So will the exercise be worthwhile? And if it is, how will it impact the rest of my life? How will it change the way that I live my life, the decisions that I make, the relationship that I have with myself, the relationship with other people? How will it change? And I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. And I don't know whether this exercise is worth those answers. And again, I think that's kind of where I'm stuck.
Right. Well, I think it's not really, from hearing you speak now, it sounds like it's not really about the conversation per se. I think it's more about your relationship with yourself. That you kind of, you know, for during this whole, you know, being heard so many times by her and just, you know, dealing with that type of behavior. I think you formed a relationship with yourself that's kind of non-existent in a way. And I think that's also why you kind of have a hard time getting your head around the whole self-care, self-love thing. You feel like that's selfish.
But it is. I mean, how I can understand why people do the whole self-care thing, because some people need it. But for me, having the work that I do, you know, because the work that I do in terms of animals and, you know, working with in a squatter camp with the kids and people who have less than me, I just feel that self-care is a luxury, which is a privilege that I'm not really entitled to, not when there is so much more suffering going on out there. And I know that, you know, I can't invalidate how I'm feeling simply because of my perceptions of, you know, other people are suffering, they need care more than I do. But I find it, I don't know. I personally find it, for me, self-care is a waste of time when I could take that time and energy to help someone else.
Right.
I'm still a functional human being. You know, I'm not constantly, I'm not having panic attacks. I'm not having anxiety attacks. I'm not having, you know, sort of mental breakdowns or anything over what happened in my life. You know, my history. So do I really have the luxury of the privilege of self-care when other people and animals need it more? And how does that then tie back to my mother?
How does it tie back to your mother? Well, I feel like the way that she treated you, it had a very big impact on your views about that we're speaking of right now, because you don't want to repeat that behavior, and because there's that gap or that void that she never really filled, you are filling it with other things and other people instead of filling it with yourself first.
But
And
but what's so wrong about that? If I'm filling that gap in a way that makes me okay and makes me happy, because what makes me happy is fighting for justice. That is what, as I mentioned before, that makes me happy. Is that then a form of denial or what? Because what is so wrong about filling the gap that way instead of filling the gap with self-care? You see what I'm saying? Nomie? Hello?
and things like that. That, to me, that hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, I was saying that the conversation that we had last time, you used words like, I don't like who I am now, wasn't I worth it? Why did nobody speak up for me or stand up for me and things like that. That to me says, the same thing that you wish that she did, and things like that seem to be a trigger of some sort. And so that's how it ties back to that relationship. It doesn't really have to, since you are not wanting to go back and speak to her about this because you feel like it's a futile exercise, it's something that you kind of have to do yourself, for yourself. And that in turn is even better for the people that you try to help and the animals that you try to help. It's not something that just starts and ends with you. It goes out into other relationships and interactions as well, and makes you feel better. And I know you say that you feel like you're not that underprivileged to be qualifying for things like self-care and such, but yes, and that's a good thing to feel like you're grateful because you feel like you have plenty compared to other people, other things. But in the same breath, it's not really a thing of comparing. There's still something in you that needs to be met, and that is telling in the language that you use and the situations that you find yourself in, if you know what I mean, if you understand what I mean.
Do you think, a thought just occurred to me, do you think that this hurdle, that's this block that I'm having in terms of I don't want to call my mother because it might hurt her, could it be that I'm actually the one in denial by punishing her, like by not calling her and telling her why I cut her out of my life? Do you think that maybe subconsciously, oh God, I don't know, it's really confusing because it just occurred to me that I could be doing this maybe to punish her. I don't know. When I say that out loud, it actually feels truer than the whole hurting her thing. Maybe
Right.
I am on a subconscious level, I'm in denial because I'm starting to feel that it's just something went off my head now while you were talking, that maybe I'm doing this. I'm actually not calling her because maybe I want to punish her. But then again, if that is what I'm doing on a subconscious level, how do I know that I am actually punishing her if I feel that she doesn't really care about whether I'm in her life or not?
Well, because like I
said,
you kind of keep, when you tell yourself things, you eventually come to believe them, at least on a surface level, even if in the back of your mind you have a different idea. On a surface level, because you repeat it to yourself so many times, you end up sort of believing it. And, I feel like a lot of the things that, you think about or ponder about with regards to certain situations that you come across, that to me says that, there's a relationship that you need to have with yourself that you're not having. And it's nothing selfish. I can't, like, that's just a fact. Like, that is just not selfish. You need to have a relationship with yourself. You need to love yourself. You need to sort of reparent yourself where your parents kind of fell short. Majority of you need that.
But the thing, the fact that I don't like who I am at this moment, I don't think that I can blame my mother for that, because, as I said, prior to the incident, the legal incident that I mentioned right at the beginning of the conversation, that I can't really publicly talk about, the betrayal of trust, the project that was stolen. Prior to that, I really liked who I was, because I worked through all these issues in my life, and I felt strong and confident, and I moved beyond all of those, and I really, I achieved, and I lived an extraordinary life,
Right.
and the things that I've done, the way that the path that I chose, or the not chose, but life chose for me, and I really, really liked who I was until that incident where I was, at the end of last year, where I was so horribly betrayed, and what it turned me into, and the way that it messed me up, my reaction to it, the fact that I can't trust my own judgment, etc., etc. That is the cause of me not really liking who I am at the moment, because as a result of what happened there, I turned into a raging, short-tempered, ill-tempered bitch, and that's absolutely not who I am. And I want to get my old self back, the person who overcame all this by herself, overcame all the shit that happened, in my history, moving beyond that, becoming my own person, and not dragging that luggage behind me. And the incident that happened at the end of last year, I think that was for me was a big trigger to revert back to all these issues that for over 40 years I try to overcome.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. It's not that you never dealt with them or that you never made it through them, but it's that certain things still can trigger you to revert back because you haven't fully developed that relationship with yourself that requires you to actually practically, view that situation in a different light and view yourself in a different light and give yourself what you need in order to be able to better handle such situations and not experience them the way that you experienced that situation, if you get what I mean.
Okay, so here's a question for you. Then what does a relationship with yourself look like? I mean, how would I know what my relationship with myself is if I don't really know what it looks like?
Well, I mean, because you're not really having one, are you? Because you feel like it's kind of selfish and very vain in one way or another. So I mean, it's different for everybody, of course. But I mean, I just do little things like I wake up in the morning, I do a little bit of a workout or some yoga, and then I kind of write in my journal what's going on in my mind, where my head is at, just sort all that noise out and sort of just be in my own space for at least the first hour of the day. Just be in my own space, work out, meditate, make myself some breakfast, and then I can be available to others for the rest of the 23 hours of the rest of the day because I've given myself that time and I know exactly where I am. I'm centered. If I can't sleep maybe for a few days, I will figure it out why that is, because I'm constantly touching base with myself and I'm constantly looking at, okay, I seem to be feeling this way, or I seem to be reacting this way to a situation like this. Why is that? And when I really look back, I see that, okay, I haven't really been doing this for myself anymore, or I haven't really been meditating anymore. I haven't really been working out anymore. So that's why I feel like shit and I'm constantly tired and this, that, and the other thing. And everything just seems to irritate me, or I haven't been eating well. And so again, I feel like shit and I'm feeling heavy and, just lethargic and all these things. So I just need to do this for myself so that I'm better equipped to do, what I love, which is to help people. And I can't help anybody really if I'm not doing anything for myself and I'm not taking care of myself and I don't have that relationship with myself where I can touch base. And, considering the nature of my work, I'm constantly speaking to people about problems and issues and things like that. And, that can eventually take a toll on a person if they are not in touch with themselves and they don't have that relationship with themselves where they constantly are touching base and are making sure that they're in a good place mentally, physically, everything. So it looks different for everybody, but that's just my way.
So you say that it looks different to everybody. What if the relationship with myself looks like, okay, I feel depleted, I feel unworthy, or any negative emotion that I feel towards myself? What if forgetting about myself and helping others is what makes me touch base with myself?
Well, yes, that is of it. That is a part of it. Because that I do sometimes suggest that someone, just step outside themselves for a minute and stop focusing so much on, problems and things, because then you kind of get stuck in that space. So yes, sometimes stepping outside of yourself is also a good thing, but you do also need to touch base with yourself.
Because in a way, me happy to help. Hello?
Yeah, I'm saying that you also need that relationship that does not involve anybody else but you. You need that.
But it for me personally, it makes me happy to forget about myself and rather use that energy to help someone else, because that makes me feel like I have worth by helping someone else, by doing something good for someone else. That it's saying it that way makes it seem very, very selfish, because it makes it sound like I like helping other people because it's in my own best interest. But I don't like attention, and giving myself that kind of attention it makes me feel really uncomfortable, and I'd rather forget about myself, because if I forget about myself, I forget about the way that I feel about myself.
Well,
it's like, I'm a shit person, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm unworthy. If I help someone, then at least I feel like I have purpose and that I'm not just a complete and utter failure and a loser. So that to me is what makes me happy.
About yourself though, and that's what that relationship with yourself fixes. So that's when you are doing these things, like you say, you don't want it to come from a place of selfishness where it's like, oh, I'm only doing this because I want to feel better about myself. When you have that relationship with yourself, you are doing these things just purely because you love to and you want to, and you feel like those people deserve it, because that gap within yourself is filled. So your actions have nothing to do with a gap that needs filling within yourself.
Because okay, now that makes sense.
I don't like having attention. I find more worth when I'm doing those things for other people. You should have worth within yourself. And that's why I was speaking about validation with that relationship with your mother, because you still are seeking external validation, even though you might be telling yourself otherwise. But from the things that you say and do, it sounds like you are still kind of seeking external validation, and you find worth in external things as opposed to finding worth within yourself and validation internally.
So are you saying that this drive or this need that I have to help others, to forget myself, is my form of filling that validation gap that I never got from the people that mattered in my life. Is that what you say?
Partly, yes.
Okay. No, I never thought of it that way. That's very interesting. So that means that if let me just quickly think about it. If I feel that, I'm just wondering whether if I do that, if I do find shit, if let's hypothetically say that I get the validation that I want from my mother, for instance, will it change how I feel about helping others? Because if that is going to happen, if that will change that, then I'd rather not look for the validation that I need, and I'd rather just continue helping people, because I really, for me, helping and fighting for justice defines who I am, and I don't want to do anything that could potentially damage that.
Right. But see, that's the thing. These experiences and relationships, as fucked up as they are, they do shape who we become. And what you're passionate about is what you're passionate about. That's not going to change. But the place where it is coming from is what's going to change. But you will still feel very much passionate about helping people, because I mean, with even myself, fixing that relationship with myself, it didn't change me wanting to do therapy and life coaching and help people change their lives and all these things. It just, brought about a new way of looking at it, and actually maybe even made me feel even more passionate, because I was able to see certain things about myself very differently. So it actually made me more passionate.
Okay. Okay. Now, what you said in the session made a lot of sense. And I think what I also need to do is I need to examine my motivations, my true motivations, and be honest with myself about why I feel that scratch off, or seeking the answer to the whole regret question. Am I trying to punish my mother by not getting that closure phone call, or giving that or am I genuinely concerned about hurting her? That, and then also the whole validation thing and changing the relationship, and how that could influence my actions in terms of philanthropy and activism. That's definitely something that I need to think about.
Yeah, and don't forget the relationship with yourself. That is very necessary. That's
going to take a lot of work, because that's so ingrained. It's like, that's who I am, man. Now suddenly you confront me with this question. It's like, fuck, I need to change who I am, because I need to change the fucking relationship that I have with my. And I'm like, thanks, bitch. That's very nice of you.
Well, it's a thing. It's a great thing, actually, because I mean, you shouldn't be feeling that way about yourself in such a way that you feel like you need to escape yourself. You know what I mean? You should be feeling great about yourself and feeling like, okay, I'm complete enough, and I feel so great about myself that I can extend myself to others, that I can just fight for others, and it come from an amazing place, and not from a place of escaping my shit.
And that's a nice way of putting it, is escaping myself. And I suppose that's another thing that I will have to dig into and answer about why it is that I'm trying to escape myself.
Right.
You gave me a lot to think about, man. It's not like I have enough to think about. Thank you very much. Just pile it on, why don't you?
Well, these are all great things to think about, I feel.
It feels so selfish, though. It's like, I think about me. So, but yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It is something that I need to change.
It's about it.
Just even just having the session with you is like I'm talking about me, which doesn't really feel right. But I understand why we're doing it, and I understand that it is part of the process.
Right.
It's the first step in the process, and it's to actually just challenge myself to confront all these questions and to work
Right.
on finding the answers.
If you're having like that 1 hour every day of just, being with yourself, then it's just 1 hour a day, and 23 other hours you're not thinking about yourself because you've already taken care of yourself.
That's one way to look at it. But actually, it's not 23 because, you do sleep some of the time.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get.
Yeah.
Nomie, thank you very much. I think that's time. We had an hour, and I just, again, thank you very, very much. It's not comfortable having to be challenged with these questions that I need to ask myself. It was easier just to sort of ignore them and put them in the back of my mind and not actually verbalize them. But you are right.
Yeah.
You are right. If I now think about it logically, a lot of what my mother said and did influenced my choices in life, like, for instance, not the decision not to have kids, the decision not to have like the formal marriage thing with the white dress because I don't like the attention on myself.
Right.
But she definitely has, there's no denying that. But I didn't think of the way she influenced me in terms of my motivations in life and the whole validation thing and why I have such a strong need for justice. I just thought it was part of my makeup. Being a Piscean woman, we have a sense of we're the special children of the universe, and we go and fight for justice, and we're the artistic and the dreamers and other. I just thought it was part of it. I never thought it was actually part of the psychology. So it's not comfortable to think about those questions because, again, it's like introspection. It's like attention on me when I could be using this energy and thought on somebody else who needs it more. But if it is going to help how I fight for justice, then I think it might be a worthwhile exercise.
Right. Well, thank you for doing this. And
thank you. Thank you. You've been an amazing help, and it's just so comfortable talking to you. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
I'm making a nice minestrone soup and slow cooking on the stove. So while we're talking, I'm smelling this and I'm like, that's self-care for you. Nice minestrone soup.
Definitely.
No, thank you so much. And yeah, I'll definitely think about what you said. And thank you for making me think differently. I think, despite me denying it, I think it's maybe what I need.
Yeah, it's a pleasure always.
Thank you, and have a good day, and chat to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.